also give you access to send images and data. They also give you access to an ATV, amateur TV. You can set up your own little TV station, and you have certain spectrum where you can broadcast a TV station if you want. So that's another thing you can use. And a ham radio can be as small as this. Okay, this one has the extra large antenna. You can unscrew it and put a smaller one or a longer one on if you want. They come in various, quality and so on. This one is a Baofeng. It's a really popular one. This one has the extended battery pack, so it's a little bit longer. The other one I have over there is about this tall from here up. This one has the extra battery pack. It's about $35. The one without the extra battery pack, the normal battery pack, is $20. So it's a very low barrier to entry if you want to do that. This one is a dual band. It operates on UHF and VHF. So you turn it on, and it has memory channels and things, and you can talk on it, push to talk. I won't go into the functions right now, but just to let you know, they are very small and portable. So then one of your first questions is like, how far can this thing go, right? What good is this? Who can I reach with it? So this one has 3 modes, a low, medium, and high power. The low power is about ½ a watt, the medium power is about 2 watts, and the highest power is 5. Most mobile radios won't go beyond 5. There's some that are 7, but 5 is sufficient to operate line of sight wherever you can see. So if I were to step forward in my back window in my backyard, I can see from here to Provo. That's 20, 30 miles line of sight. I could contact with this 20, 30 miles. In fact, with the FRS radio, we were tuning it in, and we can see Provo Canyon from here, which is 20, 30 miles away. And we were hearing them use it for like climbing. They were rock climbing. They're like, hey, can you pull the carabiner up higher or whatever? We'd hear them talking right here in Saratoga Springs. So in Utah terrain.
Do you have a line of sight though? Like what about here to downtown?
Probably not, unless you have a repeater, because you have the point of the mountain in between you. But let's see. Okay, so a repeater, I'm just going to give you a brief concept of a repeater. In Utah, we have mountains everywhere and flat valleys below, right? So the higher the antenna, the further the signal can travel. So they put a lot of repeaters on mountaintops in areas with access to some kind of road to get there to maintain it. And so they put these repeaters up there with access to power it and a road to get there. And what it does is there's 2 modes that are really commonly used for communicating voice, which is called simplex. You use the same frequency to transmit as you do to receive. Downside to that is you have to talk, wait, and then listen to the other person. You can't talk over each other like you might do in a real conversation. So you gotta have some etiquette to communicate well. With the repeater, you transmit on one frequency and receive on the other. So I might transmit on frequency 100 and receive on 101. So you program your radio in to do repeater mode, and it will transmit on one and receive on the other. So the idea is I talk, the repeater listens, and then it rebroadcasts my signal. So it might hear my 5-watt signal and rebroadcast at 150 or 200 watts right from the mountaintop. And now you might go 100 miles. So with this, if you had a repeater on the point of the mountain, which we do, you could talk here, line of sight to there, and then it would go all the way downtown. So in that case, yeah, you could easily reach downtown. In fact, there are repeaters on the promontory point that I can actually hit. They're quite far up in altitude, and I think you can see some of them from here. So I'll talk about that later in more classes. But let's see.
I have a question. So the people that use that would be GMRS, or they would have like the basic certs. You don't need ham technician.
For the FRS or the GMRS, you don't need a license, but you're still limited to the power. It's only 2 watts instead of 5, or ½ a watt depending on the channel you're operating on. And you don't get access to the repeaters unless you pay that annual licensing fee for your whole family. And there are very few repeaters that are GMRS around here. But I'll show you later a list of repeaters in the area. There's probably 100 repeaters in 100 miles of here. There's a lot of repeaters. And there's another, I'll just mention this briefly. Let's see, how are we doing on time? 30 minutes, okay. I'll mention this briefly. Another thing repeaters can do is they will hook it to like a internet connection. And so you talk to the repeater and it converts your voice through data, like voice over IP, through the internet, and it goes anywhere worldwide. So they have one protocol is called IRLP, Internet Radio Linking Protocol, And so they link the repeaters from, say, Utah to Colorado to Australia to South Africa to England. So you can get on with this, talk locally, and you're talking to someone live in Australia. And so through those links, you can talk worldwide. You can't really do that with this because they don't support that on the FRS frequencies. So IRLP is one. There's another one called Echolink. There's a couple other different protocols that you can have access to. Now, another function of a repeater, some of them have what are called auto patches. So you can talk to the repeater, and if you're a member of the club and you pay like, say, $20 a year, they'll give you access to the auto patch. And then you put in, they'll give you the code, you put in the 4-digit code, hit enter, and then you can dial a phone number. And then you can talk to somebody using your radio. So let's say you're up in the mountain, you lost cell service, but you can see the repeater because it's up in the mountain. You're hiking or in a remote area, but there's a repeater in your area with an auto patch. Then you can dial in and call somebody. Now, the only downside is whoever you're talking to, you're broadcasting their conversation. It's not a private conversation. And there are limits on what you can talk about, like you can't talk about commercial, like trying to sell your products or something. There's some of those things. There's also obscenity laws, you can't do that. And there's some other things that there's laws, we'll go into that later. But you can use it, just for an auto patch for dialing a phone number when you don't have cell service. I tried this during COVID. I took a little drive up to the American Fork Canyon and I lost cell service about halfway up. And I tried, and I could still hear people on my radio, no problem. I could talk to people down in the valley, and you could signal like I need help or whatever. One of our coworkers is on the, what is that called? The Mount Temp. TERT, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an emergency response.
Yeah, Timpanogos Emergency Response Team, I think.
Yeah, so Timpanogos Emergency Response Team, one of our coworkers at work, two of them I think were members of that. And so they'll use ham radios to coordinate with first responders and rescuers. A lot of times they're rescuing somebody where there's no cell service. They'll use this, talk to somebody, and then they'll relay, hey, send an ambulance. Or they've actually saved helicopter fees. They're like, I think he's okay. Do you need a helicopter? No, I don't. And you save thousands of dollars because you tell them, don't bring the helicopter. We're okay. So that was a story I heard at our team meeting once, if you remember that one. So, okay, another thing. Let's see, table 118. I've talked about the Oscars, the satellites. 119, another mode of communication is called meteor scatter and EME. EME stands for Earth, Moon, Earth. You can actually bounce your signal off of the moon and use the moon as a natural satellite. And it'll come back and you can talk to somebody on the other side of the Earth. Now, the downside is it's a very weak signal and it's very faint. What I understand, I haven't done it, but what I understand is Morse code is really the only signal that is intelligible enough. Voice requires more bandwidth and a stronger signal. And so they'll do Earth, Moon, Earth communication through Morse code. So that's another thing that people do. Now, meteor scatter, this is kind of a really exotic form of communication. I've never tried it, but apparently it's a thing. A meteor comes in, you know it's coming in, and when it ionizes the Earth, it creates like a little mirror, and you can reflect your radio signal off of the meteor trail. And so they'll like, okay, let's reflect our signal off the meteor trail and use that as a satellite and bounce it off. So people do that too, apparently. Nobel Prize winner Joe Taylor wrote software that uses computer sound card to both send and receive data in this code and using meteor scatter and Earth, Moon, Earth at extremely low power levels. So anyway, there's all kinds of crazy things people do with it. So I mentioned the process. So the process for getting your license, it's changed since COVID and it's changed over the years since when I got it. It used to be you would pretty much go in person, and they have what are called VEs, volunteer examiners. And the FCC allows amateurs who are volunteers to administer and proctor the tests and to grade them and to send in the license and say you passed. And so the way I did it was they would have it like once a month or twice a month. You go to some place like a school or a library, they would proctor the test, you take the test, you grade it on the site, and in a few minutes you know if you passed. If you passed, you get a copy that says you passed, and then they send in electronically to the FCC that you passed. And then once they have your record of you passing, then they issue your call sign. And you check the website to get your call sign, and once you got the call sign, you can begin transmitting. Now, since COVID, a lot of it's gone online. So You can go to the ARL website, arl.org, and look for exam sessions and find an online one. It's like your typical online proctoring where you take a picture of your room before and you take the test or something. There also are licensing classes that are offered by certain groups. I went to check licensing classes and there was one last week in Provo. It was at the fire station training room or something. And it was an 8-hour, you just go there 8 hours, cram in, try to learn it, and then pass at the end of the day. So you can do that if you want. But I'm not like the cramming kind of person. I'd like to kind of learn a little bit over time. It sticks better for me that way too. Let's see. So the testing process, 121 talks about that. You know, you bring 2 forms of photo ID. You pay your fee. I think it's like $35. ARL has a special youth fee waiver program where you get $30 back. So it costs $5 for somebody that's under 18 to take the test. And so you get some benefits with that. Okay, so at the end of chapter 1-22 tells you the bands that you have access to. So these are the frequencies that you can transmit on. I will talk about those a little bit later in the class. On the right-hand side is the key of the data type of ways of communicating. So when it says CW about halfway down on the key area, that is carrier wave or Morse code. Phone is like voice, image, you can send data, and then there's SSB stands for single sideband, so that's just voice, basically. So they tell you like where you can operate on certain frequency ranges, and then tell you the privileges. Oh, these are all the amateur bands for the extra, general, and technician. So if you look here in black, those are the ones you have access to, and if it has a T by it, then that's the technician, and those are the frequencies you get. Some of them, like the 12-meter band says EAG, it's extra, amateur, and general. So you have to be general or higher to get that. There used to be, A is advanced. There used to be a license called advanced, which they no longer have, between extra and general. They used to have another license called novice that they no longer have, so that's, you see that on the key there in the bottom right. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for chapter 1. I'll pause for a few minutes and then we'll go into chapter 2 because this one's a little bit quicker.